Well, hello, my spookies. You know, we can't keep meeting like this. People are going to talk. I'm your host here, still in frigid northern Michigan. I was just watching people ice fish out front, and I did not punch my foot through the frozen lake, and whoever told you that is a liar. But side note, my socks have not dried yet, and I'm not sure if they'll be able to. But I have a very special guest I'm bringing on today, someone who I've wanted to bring on the podcast for a while, but we never had the perfect excuse. But now with Weekly Spooky on the road, I feel like we do, and that is Ashley Hilt. Ashley, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Ashley is a Fortean Investigator, which, do you want to define that real quick for the audience?
Yeah, it's actually a common question. So in Fortean studies, it's basically an umbrella statement for cryptozoology, ufology, the paranormal. It's anything and everything that includes anomalous phenomena or things that happen without legitimate scientific backing yet.
And that includes cryptids, the paranormal, all kinds of things. It's a very big blanket, right?
Oh, yeah. Anything and everything weird. That's me. That's my job. I'm the expert.
And you also host several podcasts, but the one that I'm most familiar with is on Wednesdays, We Talk Weird.
I do. On Wednesdays, We Talk Weird covers the Fortean topics and then some. We'll break apart conspiracy theories and also delve into some true crime cases. So it is a very broad spectrum, but there is something for everybody. And it's fun. We're funny. We think we're funny. Other people think we're funny. You guys will probably think we're funny. You should check it out.
Yeah, definitely check out On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. It's the perfect show to listen to after you listen to Weekly Spooky. See? It works great because we both come out on Wednesdays.
Exactly.
It's like peanut butter and jelly. So
yeah, it is.
So as I sit here in the great white north of Michigan, have you ever been to the far north in Michigan?
I've not been to the far north of Michigan, but I have been to Michigan. I've been to the far south of Michigan, but I've not been in the Upper Peninsula yet. I definitely want to. There is a lot going on up there. Right in between the two big old lakes you got up there, there's a ton of high strangeness. So you're in the spookiest part of probably the whole country, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm not in the UP. I'm actually I'm 15 minutes from the bridge. And then I'm in
gotcha.
I'm at the tip of the mitten, like all the way at the top of the glove. And I was actually driving to a Walmart yesterday. And when I was coming back, the sun had went down and I looked over and I saw not a searchlight, but a lighthouse. And I was like, what the? And then I looked at the GPS map and I went, oh, the Great Lake is right there. Like you can't quite see it past the trees, but it's right there. It's like not even a mile away. Which was pretty cool. So, but I am going to the UP in the next couple of days. So I would love nothing more as I sit in this cozy cabin in the dead of winter. And I do mean dead of winter, than to have you just scare the ever loving crap out of me with some of your favorite terrifying folklore and encounters that you've heard about and things like that about how this very rich area for cryptids and the paranormal.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to start with everybody's favorite. I already know what you guys want to hear, and it's coming, but you're going to have to wait. I promise it's here. First, I'm going to talk about the Dog Man. That's a big one.
Okay.
The Dog Man,
yeah,
the Michigan Dog Man, is basically, it's more of a bipedal canine. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have human characteristics aside from the fact that it stands up on two legs and is very, very large. Reports are anywhere from 4 feet all the way up to 8 feet. And sometimes I've heard of bigger. But the Dog Man kind of started becoming popular after the 1880s. We had a couple of lumberjacks that were out doing their job and they ended up encountering one of these creatures and didn't stop talking about it. We also had the tale in the 60s of a gentleman who was out fishing and had actually been attacked by a pack of dogs. And so he had the fortune of owning a firearm and he fired it off. in the direction of the dogs. And they all scattered except for one, who proceeded to grin at him and stand up on his back legs. And the dog did eventually retreat. But the story picked up more so in the 80s. So in 1987, a disc jockey by the name of Steve Cook wrote a song for April Fool's Day called The Legend. And it's a fun song. Go listen to it. He's redone it a couple times, but it's like it has stories of this werewolf creature in it. And after he put the song out there again as an April Fool's Day joke, calls started flooding in from residents of Michigan saying, I've seen this thing. This thing is real. It ended up becoming the most requested song on the radio station. So, I mean, there's likely something to it. In Michigan alone, there are more sightings of the dog man than there are of Bigfoot. That's a big deal because there's about 150 sightings of Bigfoot per year in Michigan. So.
Wow. So the dog man, are there legends of the dog man? Now, I forgot to mention this for the audience. We're both Ohioans. And
we are.
So we're both used to living with Michigan as our hat. It's just right up there. So we're not far apart at all. Are there dogmen in Ohio?
Oh, absolutely. Ohio is actually a big hotspot for dogmen. So we have more local to you and I is actually in Germantown. You have the Beast of Butter Street, and I have a terrifying tale. I didn't put this on my notes, but I think I can remember it. Of a gentleman who would go out to the Germantown area and kind of investigate, and he's found all kinds of weird stuff. He's found deer that have been like half mutilated. That he leaves it there, and he comes back weeks later, and nobody else has touched it. No scavengers will touch it, which is very odd because typically, if you leave a dead deer in the middle of the woods and you come back, it's gone. That's kind of a trait of the dogmen is that once they like sink their claws into something, nothing else touches it. But he actually had a very disturbing encounter. And I'll go ahead and plug away here. You can find this whole story in Small Town Monsters documentary, American Werewolves. But he had a horrifying encounter where he was out there one day and he found clothes, and just thinking that maybe it was some type of garbage. He starts looking through the clothes. They're obviously clothes of a woman. He starts looking at them and they're very bloody. There was a sweater. The sweater had claw marks in it. And he said it looked like Freddy Krueger got a hold of this thing. And just blood everywhere. He calls the police. The police just said, we're not worried about it. It's just garbage. And then he believes that a couple of years later, he may have actually located the family of a missing young woman who would frequently jog that area. So very disturbing. And this is a grown man in his 50s. And if you talk to him about this story, I mean, he's in tears. He's got real genuine fear about some dog-like creature living in Germantown, Ohio, of all places. So yeah, there's lots and lots of dogman stories, in Ohio, in this region in general. Michigan's kind of part of this weird series of window areas, with Ohio kind of being the central point of it, because you've got Michigan, that's weird. You've got Kentucky, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania all have very, very similar legends and lore. So maybe there's something to that.
Huh. Yeah, because I was talking with a friend of mine on the last episode of this Spooky on the Road, and he wasn't so much an expert, but he was a lifelong Michigander and a Boy Scout as a child, so he knew a lot of interesting things. And he had mentioned the Melonheads.
Oh, yeah.
And I had heard of the Melonheads in Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah, we have Melonheads here. Melonheads was one of my things that I had here. So yeah, we'll talk about that for a minute. The Melonheads are like children with gigantic heads, but they're huge, and but the story to them varies from area to area. But a lot of folks believe that the legend of the Melonheads originate in Michigan. As a matter of fact, there is a location in Michigan that they have. Let me pull that up here. Where are my Melonheads?
Yeah,
there we go.
That way you can tell me
Laketown
it's right near
Township.
where I am. Where is it? I'm sorry.
Laketown Township.
Laketown Township. While you're talking, I'm going to see how far I am from there.
You absolutely should. Well, there's a place there called Felt Mansion. And Felt Mansion used to be, I think it's been a couple of things, but it's been like a Catholic school for one. But as the story goes in relation to the Melonheads, they lived not right at Felt Mansion, but on the same property that Felt Mansion was. There was also, as the story goes, an asylum or a hospital or something. And there was a doctor who either had these children who had hydrocephalus and experimented on them, or experimented on them to the point to where they ended up developing hydrocephalus. And eventually the Melonheads, the kids, they rebelled, and they killed the doctor and cannibalized him, and then ran off to go live in the woods of Lake Town Township. And actually they move around via underground tunnels within that area, sometimes attacking people and cannibalizing them because they're hungry, inbreeding amongst themselves, creating a little colony, but not quite large enough for us to catch a glimpse of.
Well, good news. I'm over 200 miles away from them. They're toward Grand Rapids. So
Lucky you.
I should be okay on that one. Of course, the further I get into the cold, the more dangerous it gets in many ways, but we'll talk about that later, because I know you don't want to, this is the foreplay, the Fortean
Exactly.
foreplay, if you will.
Yeah.
So to get back to the dog man in
Sure.
Michigan, are there more of them in the Upper Peninsula, or do they tend to just be scattered, or is there like a kind of a place that they have been seen more, or that they've been seen as more aggressive, or anything like that?
I really wouldn't say that there is one area that's more heavily populated than the other. A theory with a lot of these creatures is that the way that they evade us to begin with, why we can't prove that they exist, is because they migrate a lot. They don't stay in one place, and that's why we can't find them. If you have a collection of sightings in one area, quote unquote, a flap is what we call them. You have a flap in one area, then you're not going to, once you start investigating it, it seems to disappear entirely. And
Okay.
It's because they tend to live in that area and then move along. However, the border between Michigan and Wisconsin seems to be highly active. So I would say that if you're going to try to catch a glimpse of one, that's kind of the area that you would want to be.
I believe it. The further north you go in Michigan, and I've only been so far north, but this is my second time going way up the mitten. It gets very sparse very quickly, to the point where when I got to Carp Lake, Michigan, which is, like I said, almost to the total tip of the mitten, when I got here, the traffic lights are not currently on because it's winter. So why bother?
And yeah, nobody's out and about.
I went to the marina store to get some supplies, and I asked the lady, "Do you have any milk?" And she said, "Oh, no, we don't get milk this time of year."
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, she was like, there might be some at the general store, but otherwise you got to go 30 minutes to the Walmart south, because it's just different here. It's,
Yeah.
I needed a supply in a kind of a hurry, and I put the address of my cabin into Amazon. Amazon said they could get me something in 6 days with Prime.
Nice.
So that's how it gets, though. The more you go north, the more it feels like you're getting to the end of the world in a way. Like when I got about an hour from here, it was 5:00 in the afternoon, and there were only like 2 other cars on the highway with me. There's no rush hour here. There's nothing like that. I find it charming as well as ominous. I find it both simultaneously, charminous, if you will.
Charminous. Perfect.
Charminous. That's every vacation I go on. I'm always like, I'm going to go into a nice cabin in the middle of nowhere. No one can hear you scream. It's very pretty though.
Yeah.
It's
very charming. I can relate.
So that's why the more I think about out here, the more I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised, that there would be a lot of unexpected things. Cause you get a lot of elements. Because as you know, as when we've talked, I'm not a huge necessarily believer in the paranormal and cryptids.
Sure.
I love the storytelling aspect very, very much. I find it very interesting to learn about it, to hear what people are saying, to hear what people are experiencing. And I'm not really concerned with the on my end with the arguing. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to hear what
Sure.
people have experienced and learn about it and hopefully get some goosebumps, you know, and have a fun time, because that's the great thing about human stories.
Let me give you a great piece of advice while you're up there. Talk to the locals about their weird encounters. You know, sometimes when we were doing an investigation on the Beast of Butter Street, the Germantown dog man, I walked into a bar because I had to go to pee really bad, and the only place that was open was one little tiny bar in this tiny town. And I walk in there, and I do my thing. I come back out. I go up to the bartender. There's like 3 other people sitting at the bar, and I'm like, "Hey, you ever heard about the Beast of Butter Street?" And I just threw it out there, and he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, allegedly, you guys have this, like, it's like a werewolf. Werewolf is the easiest way to explain dog man. If you say dog man, it sounds ridiculous, but if you say werewolf, it sounds cool."
I like the dog man's crazy. Werewolf, sure.
Yeah, werewolf, yeah, but dog man, so I'm just like, yeah, you guys have a werewolf. He's like, we have a big eagle thing, which is the first time I'd ever heard about the big eagle thing. So I was like, what does that mean? What's that? Is that a thunderbird?
Yeah.
But he didn't know. He had no idea what I was talking about. But the lady sitting at the bar, she did. She knew exactly what I was talking about. And, she started sharing some kind of information. My research partner was waiting for me in the car. She was getting worried. So she was like, you need to get out here. We are not in friendly territory. We're always nervous going into small towns because they know everybody and they don't know us, But she kind of started talking. But, you can go. You can go almost any small town, and, getting over the fear of just asking them, hey, what's your weird story? You'd be surprised how many people are more than happy to share with you that either something happened to them or they grew up within their family and they had this reported thing that had happened. If you're able to really get out there, I always tell people, go talk to the bush people, go talk to the people that live off the grid, because they'll just tell you that these things are very real. It's not a matter of are they or aren't they? They are, and this is how they live their life according to the fact that they know these things exist around their home. So yeah, talk to the people up there, though. I'm sure they would give you some really great stuff.
Oh, and so far they've been incredibly polite. I walked into a kind of a biker bar place. It was like kind of a working class bar and a biker bar combined, because you could really see the delineation when you walked in of who were the bikers and who were the folk.
Oh yeah,
the town folk. And when I walked in, it was awesome. It was like a movie, except in a good way. Everybody stopped and looked at me. And then one guy just went, dude, I love it. And then they all just kind of went back to their thing. I mean, my audience knows I dress like a maniac. So everywhere I go, I remember I was like, after my experience chatting with people there and getting my food, I was like, I think I'm the mayor of Carp Lake now. I think that's how that works.
That's how I felt when I went to Arkansas.
Yeah?
Yeah, I definitely had that say. Everywhere I went, everybody was complimenting everything about me, just because I also have a very loud demeanor about myself physically. And it was great. Everybody was so nice, though. I was like a celebrity. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm famous here.
In the last 6 or 7 years, I have not traveled anywhere and gotten hassled. It's just not happening anymore. Yeah. Now people are just kind of like, hey, you're doing your own thing. I like that. And I'm like, thank you. I like you too. Boom.
Yeah.
But because my friends will always be like, oh man, you're going to the South. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go have everybody call me Sugar and Sweetie. I'm not worried about this place at all.
There are still some places that you can end up at. We ended up in this is a little off topic, but we ended up in a town in West Virginia, and on the way in, there's no cell phone service at all. There's no cell phone service going into the town or out. On the way in, we passed by a house that had a noose freely hanging out in the front yard. It does happen, but read the room. If you're in a town where there's a noose, probably go somewhere else,
Yeah, no, I would have to, unless it's Halloween, then I'd be like, I wonder.
Well, it was September, so maybe they're just early decorators. We did stay. We did opt to stay, and we had a great time. But I'll probably never go back again.
Well, probably not, but,
but that is not the norm. That's one time out of all of the times of every small town that I've been to, and I've been to a lot. Typically, everybody is super friendly. The locals are very welcoming of you and your person. Just talk to people.
Yeah. No, and I recommend that going anywhere for any purpose. talk to folks.
Yeah.
As much as you can about anything. Just enjoy that interaction. I love being places that are out of the way because the people are very interesting. They've chosen to live in a very different way, even if they're just in a town that's like 45 minutes from a city. Like that's a different way of living. So get back to the dog man. Do you have any any accounts? Oh, it's all good. People know how I ramble. Are there any accounts of highly aggressive dogmen besides that one you were telling me about with the one that kind of grinned at the man?
Yeah. Actually, dogman is typically revered as being extremely aggressive. As far as specific stories in Michigan, I don't think. I mean, if you're talking the most aggressive, well-known story about the dogman, that's definitely the beast at the Land Between the Lakes, which is the area between Kentucky and Tennessee. Okay, it's a national park. And allegedly, in the 1980s, there was an entire family that was slaughtered while camping out in the Land Between the Lakes. And when they arrived on the scene, I mean, the people, there was a mom and a dad and a son, and later discovered a daughter. The mom and the dad and the son were all clawed up and bitten into, and there really isn't any. Land Between the Lakes is a big nature reserve, but there really isn't anything that causes that type of injury to people. They didn't know there was a daughter initially until they found blood dripping from a tree, and that's when they found the little girl's body dangling up in the tree there. That's the most. In the tree, dangling up in the tree.
That's some predator stuff right there. I mean, man, hanging from the tree. Ugh.
Yeah.
So
pretty horrifying story.
No, that's mortifying. See, that's what I'm talking about. See, now I'm looking to my left and I'm looking to my right. That's what I want. I want you to make me so afraid to enjoy my time here. So one question for you as an expert, and you are an expert.
Sure.
What would you recommend if you believed you were encountering the dogman? Like, what would be your instructions to survive the encounter?
Well, first and foremost, don't engage. Don't try to, like when you encounter a bear, right? What they tell you is to make yourself look big, right? That's going to scare the bear away. Don't do that. This is a dog. You have to keep that in mind. Canines will then take that as a challenge and they will maul you. You would just kind of slowly get out of that area. You definitely want to come armed. Anytime I have mixed feelings about guns, and that's neither here nor there. But if you're out in the middle of the woods, you need to be able to be protected, not just from potential dogmen, but from things like bears and cougars and things.
Oh yeah. I will tell you, I have a firearm. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I have a firearm that I literally named my walkabout gun. It's for when you're in the middle of nowhere in the woods.
Yes. Yeah, because there's many, many dangers, and even other people are very dangerous in the woods. So,
oh yeah,
but if you have a firearm with you, you could potentially try to engage the firearm. I wouldn't shoot directly at it. I would just shoot near it to let it know, hey, I'm armed. And then I would get out of there. I wouldn't run, but I would definitely do a brisk walk away from the area. One thing that you want to avoid if you're out in the woods is tobacco usage. If you smoke, it's tough, but a lot of people say that tobacco actually draws these things. And so I guess if you want to see one, then smoke, but it's like offensive. Tobacco is very offensive to these creatures.
And you say that as I'm like, the first thing I want to do, Ashley, when I get into a beautiful forest is smoke a cigar for an hour and a half. I'm not even joking.
Well, I mean,
you are ruining my fun.
My dog, man. I mean, that's how you do it, But yeah, that's what they say. I am a regular smoker, and as a matter of fact, when I go, I have some spiritualness to myself. When I go to a lot of these places, I will take loose leaf tobacco and I'll leave it in certain spots. So I guess I'm not very smart either. I'm asking for it, but that is something. If you want to avoid these things, then don't bring tobacco with you.
So one more question about the dogman before we move on. So the dogman, is it believed to be like a type of canine that has human characteristics, or is this believed to be some kind of a lycanthrope type deal where it's a person who's become a dogman?
Well, that really depends on the story. You know, in New Orleans, they've got the Rougarou, okay, which is more of a lycanthropy case. So it's somebody who is cursed. I can't remember exactly how that happens, but they're only cursed for a certain amount of time before the Rougarou curse, goes off within itself. But they do actually change from human to canine back and forth. But the Dogman itself is different in that it doesn't have these. It's not human. Never was human, and it has. It was born a Dogman and it lived a Dogman. Now, whether or not that thing is a terrestrial, undiscovered species of animal or something demonic or supernatural. I mean, I've got people that are convinced that this is not like something of this earth. I had another gentleman actually in New Orleans, and he says it's a werewolf. Has always said it's a werewolf. Him and a group of buddies, about 5 of them, were attacked by one of these things, and it was the most. I mean, it gave this man PTSD for the rest of his life. He thought for a long time that at night, every time it was nighttime, that this thing was going to come after him for like 10 years. Would sleep with a shotgun on his lap, on his couch, with the house boarded up because he was so scared of this thing. But now, again, he's convinced that this is some type of supernatural being. And again, when you have these encounters with this thing across the board, it's much more terrifying than, say, like seeing a Bigfoot. A lot of people see Bigfoot and they're like, ooh, wow, oh my gosh, it's Bigfoot. People see Dogman and they're instantly overcome with this fear, with this intense fear. Some people have even reported these things telepathically communicating with them. Actually, there was a report out of Michigan where a guy said that he had seen this Dogman as a young child out in the woods, but it didn't attack. And then again, as an adult, he saw this thing again on his property, and he happened to have a machete with him, and he was going to go after it. And the thing, before it darted off into the woods, turned around, stood up on its back legs, and told him, "Don't," and then went on its way, which is wild. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, no, that's wild. So to bring it all to a boil it all down.
Yeah.
Bigfoot, misunderstood creature. Dogman, yes. Don't mess with him.
No, just leave him. He's a criminal. Yeah, leave him alone. Plenty of stuff about Dogman out there. You could do a whole entire episode just on it if people are interested. I think there's a whole podcast just on Dogman stories. Just it's out there. Google Dogman, you'll find it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our commercial sponsors, but we'll be right back with Spooky on the Road after this. All right, we're back. We just got done dogging around. That's not a saying. I don't know why I said that. I might be going crazy. I've been in this cabin alone for like 5 days, but that's fine. So we've covered the Dogman, and I am a little creeped out, especially because you mentioned that tobacco attracts him. And literally the first thing I was going to do when I got to the national park in the UP was light up a cigar, because that's what I do when I'm in the woods.
Yeah, you should do that. Totally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And wear a body camera.
Yeah. Yeah. Just live stream it to me at least, and that's fine.
Yeah. So you're like, listen, I'll write the book about what happened to your body. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. No, you know what? You have the rights. If I get murdered by a cryptid, Ashley Hilt, you have the rights to the story of what happened to me. That's a contract. I said it out loud and it was recorded.
That's true. Legally binding.
Legally binding. So we've gotten through the Dogman. What else is there for me to keep an eye out for in Michigan?
Well, why don't we talk about some things in the water?
Oh yeah, I'm literally next to a big lake right now, and I'm near the biggest lake ever as well.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of interesting stories surrounding the big lakes. I mean, like I said, up there in the Upper Peninsula, you're right in between 2 of the largest lakes. Well, one of them is the largest lakes, of the Great Lakes, which are steeped in lots of history. But one creature I want to talk about is Pressy. Pressy happens to be the Lake Superior monster. The creature is said to have a serpent's body, a horse-type head, the tail of a whale, a long neck. It's blackish green in color, and it's up to 75 feet long, depending on the report. Lake Superior is absolutely massive. So, I mean, it's no surprise there that something equally as massive could live there. But what was really interesting to me about this is that, you know, it does have an encounter that I really wanted to bring up. As recently as the 1990s, there was a witness that was out there on a boat who actually saw this creature get out of the water, jumped out of the water, and chomped onto a buck standing near the water and pulled it in.
Like an alligator? Like a crocodile?
Yes, like a crocodile with its big horse-like head.
Yeah.
And it chomped down with such force on the entire body of this thing. The head had popped off the buck and laid there on the shore, where the rest of the body was eaten, I guess, taken and eaten.
Wow. I mean, I've heard some stories of like lake monsters, but I've never heard of one hunting on the shore.
Yeah. Well, there is a lot of reports of things like that. One of the first Nessie sightings, which of course is across the pond there, was a veterinarian student that saw Nessie walking across the road. But the stories of these things coming up out of the water are really fascinating to me, because you think you're safe just because you're not in the water. Clearly, that's not the case. Even standing next to the water has its risks, and I'd hate to be that.
And if you stand next to the water smoking a cigar, you're fucking dead. That's what you're telling me. I get it. I get where you're going.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't do it right outside the tree line by the water now either. So
basically, the only safe place to smoke, ironically, is on an airplane, where you're not allowed to smoke.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Well, I mean, even then, there are Thunderbirds and
I knew it. I knew the
Thunderbirds.
I knew they were coming into this to cause me to just be terrified of everything, as if flying isn't
just
scary.
Smoke.
Now you sound like my mother.
It's okay. I'm guilty too. I get it. But yeah, it's just one of those things, But yeah, this thing was horrifying. It hasn't really been seen very often as of late. It doesn't seem like it needs to. It seems like it would have a very good food source. Lake Superior is home to sturgeon, which sturgeon are honestly probably responsible for a lot of these sightings sometimes, because they're huge and they're intimidating. Yeah. They get up to like 25 feet long. But that doesn't explain the horse head and the whale tail and 75 feet. But it obviously, again, it has a dedicated food source. It doesn't need to hunt outside of the water unless it's craving something besides seafood. So,
oh no,
I wouldn't want to be near that day.
Now you're saying it's even worse, because I'll be near the water, and it'll be like, I'm craving Hispanic food, and I'll be like, ay. Everything's killing me. Everything wants to kill me.
Yeah. Yeah, everything does.
It's going to slurp me down and then go, mucho caliente.
Yeah. No, nature is a serial killer, in case you didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
It wants to kill you, So don't be mistaken. You're not special. It'll kill you too. But
and I know those giant
horrifying
sturgeons, by the way, the science completely believes that there are gargantuan sturgeons in the Great Lakes, like based on everything that science understands about the size creatures grow and the kinds of food they have access to. They have no doubt that there are gargantuan sturgeon in the water. So that's definitely a part of it.
Yeah, we know that they're there. Again, some people, you might see a video where a picture pop up every once in a while and you see this odd shape. And, to somebody who doesn't know or isn't familiar with the sturgeon, which is horrifying in and of itself because it is so large and ugly. But, you wouldn't know, and you'd be like, oh, that's something. It's not exactly the sturgeon you need to be afraid of. It is what eats the sturgeon. And, we do think that there are things that are big enough to take those guys down, and that's scary. Cressy
you aren't kidding.
Very well could be one of them.
I mean, my cryptid interest is somewhat casual. I've always loved the story of the Loch Ness Monster. I've always thought Bigfoot was really fascinating, but I've never heard of such a creature leaping out and grabbing a buck. That scares me.
Yeah, that is something else. There's always something. Even in your own backyard, there's always something. And I recommend people who aren't from Michigan listening to this kind of take a look at what you got, because you'd be surprised of some of the stories. But I do have other water stories for the Michigan area. You want me to continue with the next one?
Absolutely.
This one's kind of more of a ghost story, really, but it has ties to Native American lore, and that is the sand on Beatty Gree. So Beatty Gree Beach is in the Upper Peninsula, and the sand there makes a singing sound when you press down on it with your palm. Okay, so if you're pressing in the sand, it'll sing. And then if you strike it really hard, it barks, which is really fascinating. Now, the sand, they've actually taken the sand and moved it to other beaches to see if they can replicate the phenomena, and nobody's been able to yet. The legend behind it is that, the sand is the voice of a Native American maid crying out to her lost lover who died at sea in Lake Superior. And scientists can't really, they just they're like, okay, that's a good enough explanation for us. There isn't an explanation for why the sand sings, but it does. So if you are close enough to that area and it's not too frozen, you should definitely go take your cigar and press your hand down on the, in the sand.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Have you heard anything about anything in frozen waters, like under frozen lakes or anything like that? I'm just curious.
No, not anything in particular. But fish in particular are interesting creatures. Freshwater fish, a lot of them, you can actually, you go to the pet store, you can buy goldfish and, freeze it, pop it in your freezer alive. And when you take it out and unthaw it, it's still alive.
This is not us saying you should do that. We're just saying you could.
No. You could, right? No, yeah. Don't do this. That's animal cruelty. But you can. A lot of freshwater fish species can freeze completely and live through it. That's a scientific fun fact right there. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I was out yesterday on the lake when I didn't punch my foot through any ice and get water in my socks, which then turned ice, which did not happen. When I was on the frozen lake, I was talking with one of the fishermen, and he had just caught a walleye that was about a foot long in this frozen water. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is very interesting how hardy these things are and how they don't really need particular conditions to exist. Whereas, like, if that were us in the water, we'd freeze to death and we'd die and we'd be dead. And that's that.
Yeah. Well, did you
but
know?
They kind of have perfected cryogenics, but way better than we could.
They've perfected so much because saltwater creatures and freshwater creatures, saltwater creatures live in a very ideal environment compared to freshwater fish. Freshwater fish have to deal with bacteria. They have to deal with predators in the on land and in the water. They have to deal with cold. They have to deal with all of these different things. If you ever want to be mortified, look at a photo of a crab and then look at a photo of a freshwater crab right next to it. The freshwater crab looks like it's seen some shit. They look much meaner. Yeah. And that's why I first learned this. I was reading an Army field survival guide because I'm weird and I read things like that. And it was breaking down like what kinds of fish you can catch. And it showed the saltwater version next to the freshwater version. And the freshwater version was always so much more terrifying than the saltwater version. And of course you can eat saltwater fish. You could pull them out of the water and just eat them. You'd want some soy sauce, but you could. As to where a freshwater fish, you need to cook it unless you're a bear.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be full of bacteria.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be a good time.
Freshwater fish are, they give me a run for my money, man. They're badass. Like, kudos to them for surviving. Because I couldn't do half the stuff that they do if I were a fish. So.
See, I don't like to be called Portuguese. I like to be called freshwater Spanish.
Freshwater Spanish.
Let's just continue past that joke. Wow.
Okay. But you got to leave it in now.
Oh,
so
no, I'm leaving that. No, for sure.
Okay, well, we'll move on to, by its name, Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan has what has been dubbed as, well, you've heard of the Bermuda Triangle. Now get ready for the Lake Michigan Triangle. Basically the same concept. Lots of people have been lost at sea in Lake Michigan. Let me see. There was actually a series of, there was like a flap there where pretty much anybody and everybody that sailed across it was not coming back. Some people claim that there is a portal in the middle of the lake and that it either slows time or speeds up time sometimes. Other people report seeing UFOs over the lake quite a bit, or just strange bright lights in the sky. And one thing that I know a little bit about in my field is, recently we've had these strange reports of a winged humanoid around Lake Michigan that's now been dubbed the Lake Michigan Mothman. And
All right.
there is a theory that it comes from a portal in the middle of Lake Michigan, and that's why it's there. So,
see,
I'd
heard
on the lake.
I'm starting to see a pattern of don't go out. Or
you just don't go anywhere ever. Yeah.
Or be in Michigan.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard that there was a Michigan Triangle, but I hadn't learned anything about it. I learned about the Alaska Triangle recently, but I haven't done a deep dive into the Michigan one yet. So
there are a bunch of triangles everywhere. I don't know if the triangle is just the holy symbol of weird or what the deal is there. You got the Lake Michigan Triangle, you've got the Bridgewater Triangle, you got the Texas Dogman Triangle. I mean, there's a ton of them. If you are within a triangle formation anywhere at all, you need to leave as soon as possible. Because
get the F out.
There's spookies. Yeah,
yes.
Get the F out. Take your cigars and get out of there.
We're going to take a real quick break to hear a word from our sponsors, but we'll be right back with Spooky on the Road. All right, we're back, and we were just talking about the deadliness of triangles, the most dangerous shape. It does look, of all the shapes you see, it looks the most like one that could stab you. So that has to mean something.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's never a rhombus, it's never the square. It's always the triangle.
Always the damned triangle. So what else you got for me to scare the ever-loving crap out of me and ruin my vacation?
I got you. I got a couple more things, and then I'm saving the best for last, and you already know what that is. I know you know what it is.
I have a feeling I do.
We started kind of talking about the Mothman a little bit. I do actually have a personal account, not from me, but from an eyewitness of what they reported as a man bat that they saw in Flint, Michigan, that I'd like to read.
Okay.
So, as per the anonymous user, they said, I was looking out my window about 4 a.m. one night and saw a man-like bat, large, with black leather-like skin and bat wings, very muscular, gliding over the power lines. I felt very threatened by its presence, and I stayed quiet and watched it glide by. I then shut and locked my window for the night. I have heard it flying around at night, landing on roofs and watching me and my husband out in our backyard at night. Even my dogs were afraid and wanted to go inside, and they never do that. So we all went in because it felt not safe. They are real and scary, and I'm afraid to be outside at night alone now. That's horrifying.
Ugh. Yeah.
No, thank you. I can't imagine, this person... with a lot of these flying weird creatures, they do tend to reoccur. So if you see it once, it's not going to be the last time you'll ever see it. I don't know if they follow you. I don't know if they also tend to live in one area at a time and then move along. What the case is there. But this certainly isn't an isolated incident out of Michigan, just a very personal one. Where people are seeing these things and they maintain that that's what I saw. It's a weird man bat type creature.
Okay, so now I've got to fear the man bat, all bodies of water, the woods if I'm enjoying a cigar, triangles, and probably some other shapes I'm forgetting. And also not freeze to death, but that's pish posh. That's you just being paranoid. I don't need to wear long underwear. Shut your mouth.
Exactly. Well, right. Exactly. No, you'll be fine. You can. You're freshwater Spanish, so you can survive.
Oh,
you'll be fine.
man. Yeah, I'll be totally fine.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that was a horrifying encounter of the man bat in Michigan. Well, let's just say ghosts and folklore and creatures aren't your style. Maybe you're afraid of visitors from another world. Well, I've got something for you.
Oh,
March
okay.
8th, 1994. West Michigan had one of the biggest documented UFO encounters ever. Over 300 witnesses saw lights in the sky that actually people said looked like Christmas lights. They were red and white and green and blue lights that were kind of oscillating from these shapes that were cylindrical. This wasn't just residents that were seeing it. As a matter of fact, these were reported to 911. They were observed by police officers, and the National Weather Service saw this phenomena happening. And to date, there is no worldly explanation for what everybody saw. It was seen across 42 counties in Michigan.
Wow. And see, because the only thing I can think of is the Aurora Borealis, which does show itself sometimes in parts of Michigan. But that's not exactly the way an Aurora Borealis looks.
No.
So, yeah.
No. And, I think the National Weather Service would have known that that's what they could have been like, oh, that's easy. This was solved. But they didn't. Nobody knew. Nobody knew what this was. So, of course, the only logical explanation to go from here is aliens. Of course.
But it's also the most fun
reported
explanation.
That night. Yeah, no abductions reported, but that doesn't mean there weren't any. Probably we could date back and look at missing persons reports and people that just never came back. I mean.
But then you have to wonder, were these lights attractive to the dogmen? And it all becomes so clear. Wake up, people. The dogman is in the sky.
Of note, the lights were not in the shape of a triangle, so they're not as threatening as we think, right? Because we know that they weren't a triangle.
Oh, there would have been no survivors if it had been a triangle of light in the sky. The most deadly shape known to man.
But yes, it was not triangular. So I guess they just, I don't know. The UFOs decided that they hated Michigan and they never came back again. So
I mean, a lot of my friends in Ohio would be like, good for them, because they're sports fans, so they gotta hate on Michigan.
That's what I tell people about Michigan, because I love Michigan. I do, and I tell people, what's great about it is that when I tell people in Ohio I'm going to Michigan, they're like, Michigan. When I go to Michigan and I tell people I'm from Ohio, they're like, oh, really? What part? Big difference.
It varies, but mostly, that's what it is. It's funny, too, because, like, in Ohio, it'll be like, oh, I'm going to Michigan. And you either get somebody who there's like two kinds of people who like football and people who like outdoor sporting. Like, because if they hunt or fish or anything, they're like, oh, yeah, man, Michigan's the best. Like, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Because if you live in Ohio and you like doing sporting things outside, you go to Michigan at least once a year. Because it's pure
that's
Michigan.
True. That's very true. No, I really like Michigan. I recommend it. So
I do
those
too.
UFOs don't know what they're missing.
Especially once you can outrun the dog man, you're set.
Yes.
He chases your car when you cross the border, but you can just get right past it. The good thing about the dog man is he chases your car, but if he caught it, he wouldn't know what to do with it. I mean,
no, he'd probably shake it around in his teeth a little bit, throw it around,
And then you go,
dogs.
No.
Yeah.
That's it.
You got to get the newspaper out, let them know. I'm going to give you a nice whomping if you don't cut it out.
Right on the tip of the nose. So, we've had aliens now. What else could there possibly be to the land of Michigan?
I got one more. And it's a big one.
Okay.
I know people have been wanting me to talk about this, so I'm excited to get into it. Are you ready for it?
I am.
Okay. So, within colder areas, Michigan being one of the absolute coldest at the tip there, There is a creature that lurks around the woods, very horrifying. It typically is extremely, extremely skinny. Usually you can see every bone within its little horrible disfigured body. It's usually gray in color, except the mouth, which typically has blood consistently and constantly dripping from it with razor sharp teeth. This creature is known as the Wendigo.
Yes.
People love this thing. I think it is the perfect ghost story, and it has been for centuries. We know that. So within Michigan, the origins of Michigan is that it's very heavily steeped with Algonquin lore and legend. Most notably in Michigan, you have the Chippewa tribe. And what happens to be my favorite part of the story is that the Chippewa don't just talk about the Wendigo. A lot of their lore that they talk about also includes the Wendigo. And I'll kind of get into that in a moment. So what is the Wendigo? It has kind of two meanings. You kind of have two ways to be disrupted by a Wendigo. You can actually be disrupted by the creature itself, which will lure you into the woods, oftentimes with shrieks, or it may even imitate or mimic the cry of somebody within a tribe or somebody you know. Whistling, that's a very popular superstition in that area, is if you hear whistling in the woods, you do not whistle back. And you don't go searching for it. You definitely don't go searching for it. But another way that you can encounter a Wendigo is actually these creatures walking around don't come from some other realms. They're actually bred from people. So let's just pretend that it is the 1600s and you are a Chippewa tribesman and you have your family there and you guys have just got done with your final hunt before the winter hits, and you know you're not going to have enough food this season. You know that already. And so as the cold winter months come and food becomes scarce and you start starving, the starvation tends to drive you a little bit nuts and desperate. It's been particularly tough to make a fire lately because it won't stop snowing. You're cold, you're hungry, you're probably going to die. Your oldest son has already died. And you're looking at the rest of your family, trying to find a solution. Well, what's your solution? You're going to eat them. But once you do so, that changes you. It changes you entirely. And then slowly you start pushing the limits more and more amongst your tribesmen. You start exhibiting huge acts of greed and gluttony. Start suggesting to the rest of the tribe that, hey, let's just eat all the dead people. We'll be okay. Your physical appearance starts changing. Eventually, you're becoming more and more emaciated, regardless of the fact that you've now also become insatiable and you can't stop eating your local tribesmen. The hair starts falling out. The skin starts turning gray because you're not really getting much nutrients off of people. We don't make good eating. Until eventually the tribe either kicks you out entirely or you eat them all. And then you are left to, guess what, roam the woods forever looking for something to eat. So that's essentially how Wendigo comes to be. It's people. And they're people.
I've always connected with the Wendigo story as being just truly terrifying.
Because you eat people? I'm just kidding.
Not now, I don't. But there's this concept I heard about years and years ago that in the early days of the Wendigo legend and lore, it was actually basically a way to cope with the concept of cannibalism being necessary sometimes.
Yeah.
So what would happen is somebody would die in the tribe, they would eat the meat, and then they would all just agree that what happened to that person is the Wendigo got them. And then as time progressed, that went from being a creature that gets you to being the punishment for cannibalism. As you know, obviously you would not want to encourage cannibalism, especially once things got a little bit better with your tribe. It would be a bad idea to encourage it. And just that concept, the idea that is one of the ways that the Wendigo concept started, is truly chilling.
It is very much a cautionary tale.
Yes.
Because it deters you from, human life is cheap. And especially when you're talking about it's between me or them, or, you had to have some kind of litmus test for morality for these things. So the Wendigo spirit is still very much alive today. It's just that it is now shifted into something entirely. It's not so much cannibalism, because it's not just cannibalism. That's just where it started, because that's what we had. It's gluttony and greed and selfishness. And the people, especially the Chippewa, they're one of the largest, North American tribes that we still have. And, they still very much believe in it, just manifesting in a different form. But I mentioned a lot of the Algonquin lore has stories that include a creature known as the Wendigo. Actually, one of these this is a wholesome story. I'll give you a wholesome story. Is about how the first dog came to be, the first man's best friend. And so you had two members of the Chippewa tribe that were they were out on a lake in their canoe, and the canoe sprung a hole. So they came up ashore, and a giant, which may or may not be Bigfoot, actually came along and offered to help the gentleman. They said, "Oh, wow, you look very cold. Let me go ahead. Let me take you back to my home. We'll take your canoe. We'll get you fixed up. We'll get you some food." They go back to the giant's home, and a knock happens on the door. And he opens up the door, and it's a Wendigo. And the Wendigo looks at the tribesmen, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, you guys can't be here. This is a giant. He's gonna eat you. The reason why he's invited you in, he's nice, is because he's gonna eat you." And the giant's like, "Hey, now wait a minute. No, that Wendigo, he's a bad guy. I'm the good guy." And it becomes kind of a battle there. Who's better? So the giant says, "You know what? I will settle this right now." He has a bowl sitting on the floor face downwards, and he flips that bowl up, and a tiny creature is underneath the bowl resting. And as soon as he flips that bowl up, the creature grows to large size and attacks the Wendigo and drives it away. And the men were just fascinated. What is this creature? He just saved our lives. And he's like, "Oh, it's a dog. You can have it." And as well as feeding the men and taking care of their boat, lets the men take his dog as well. So very generous gentleman, very generous Bigfoot or whatever he is. But yeah, the story of the first dog includes a Wendigo in it. So,
wow.
There's conflicting reports of whether or not there was a physical creature at any point in time.
Sure.
And I think there is, but I don't think it's what we think it is. I think it's a mix of lore. But you have reports of people seeing these pale humanoids in the woods a lot. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. I'd gotten a report of somebody in Michigan who saw a weird skinny person, and, out in the woods. Was it a crackhead? I don't know. Was it a Wendigo? I don't know. They didn't really stick around to find out, but you do have these reports of these creatures out there. And I think that being a Native American at the time and having that story, I think the Wendigo story came first. The spirit of the Wendigo came first. Then they started encountering these creatures, and they just assumed, well, that must be the Wendigo. Who knows?
Well, we're going to take a quick break, listen to our sponsors, and we'll be right back. And we're back. And after all this Wendigo talk, I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry.
Oh, no.
I know. And I can see the fishermen from my window all alone in their tents. He was licking me. One of the best cannibalism movies ever. Have you seen Wendigo, the movie from, I think it was 2002?
I have not. The only Wendigo movie that I watched was Antlers. I probably should check out the others. Antlers was pretty good. The only gripe that I had with it was there was too many white people.
Fair. They had some natives in there too. So,
had one.
But I guess it was. I think it was about fighting the unknown. So it was kind of fish out of water for them to have to fight the Wendigo. But I have not seen. Yeah, I have not seen the film Wendigo yet, but I have it with me on the trip. So you better believe tonight I'm going to watch it and regret it later. So,
hell yeah.
Wendigo. Yeah. So,
well, did you know the spirit in Pet Cemetery is a Wendigo?
Really?
It is, and they showcase that in the book more. But if you watch the movie with that perspective, because guess what? When you're taking your loved ones and you're burying them, guess what you're doing? you're committing a very selfish act. You're not doing it for you. And so you have immediate repercussions in the form of zombie, demonic family members and children or whatever. But yeah, the Pet Cemetery is a Wendigo. That's what the spirit is.
That's really cool. I mean, because, obviously it's Native American, so that would make sense. So one Michigan thing that my buddy Stu brought up, being a Michigander, he said that when he was a child, they constantly in the Scouts brought up the Manitou.
Okay.
Are you familiar at all with the Manitou?
I'm familiar with the Manitou as a concept.
Sure.
The Wendigo is considered a type of Manitou. Manitou is just basically any and every negative spirit. It's kind of like how Christians have God and the devil. So within the Algonquin tradition, Manitou is the devil. And so underneath the devil, you've got demons and possession and all this bad stuff. That's at least my understanding of what the Manitou is. That's what it is.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because that's what I was told. I was told the Manitou was a benevolent spirit that when he was a kid, he was taught that they had a deer skull and kind of a bizarre body. That was what he was told. I mean, who knows what that's based off of other than, hearsay among scout leaders. But I found that to be a really striking image of this creature with just a skull for a head, almost the opposite of some of the depictions of the Wendigo, because some of them, it's like a gaunt man and some of them have antlers, some of them don't. It can vary quite a bit.
Yeah, the antlers, the depiction of the Wendigo, a lot of people, when they think of it, they think of like the stag-headed creature. And, that kind of comes from a little bit of fantasy by a book written by, I think his name's Algernon Black something. I didn't write this down. I should have. But he had described it as being stag-headed. And then I think it's just because of mistranslation. Because sometimes the Wendigo, again, it's a master of mimicry. It could potentially wear coverings over it to try to mask itself from what it actually is to try to lure you in. And then there's also some tribes, very specific tribes, have a dance that they'll do in which they don the stag head themselves to keep the Wendigo away before the seasons hit. But I could see this all kind of culminating in its own beast and its own creature, roaming the woods with the horrifying stag head.
Interesting. And are you aware there is a Wendigo, Michigan?
I did not know that.
So there is a Wendigo. It's spelled Windigo, but that's just another spelling for Wendigo. But Wendigo, Michigan is not only in the Upper Peninsula, it's on an island, a little tiny island. I believe it's the farthest northwestern point of Michigan. There's this little island, and I want to say it's on like Isle Royale, I think is what it's called. And it's only accessible by boat or airplane that can land on water. Wow. And there's a resort there, believe it or not.
Okay.
It's a vacation spot, but it is closed from the moment it gets cold until the moment it gets warm. You cannot get there. There's no way to get there. The power is shut off. There's no people there. The fuel tanks are empty. Literally, it is completely, you can't be there. Like getting there would be damn near impossible.
Wow.
And I've always enjoyed these stories about how if you go to these islands like up in Michigan, you go to these little tiny islands near the UP, that there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens there because hunters will, get on like a little bush plane and go all the way out there just to get to untouched land. Tons.
Well, because again, it's untouched. You're correct. And so there's tons of lore to be had there. So what I'm hearing is this: you have to go there. Okay.
Oh God, I want to.
You have to take a triangle, the instrument, the triangle, and a cigar.
Yeah. And the cigar, right? Of course, yes.
Cigar. Stand right in the middle of it, okay? While you're hungry. You have to be hungry.
I'm always hungry. That's no problem.
And play your triangle, smoke your cigar, and let's just see what happens.
Let's just
take a squeaky toy, too, just in case.
Oh, of course.
Nice squeaky toy with you.
Oh, It's funny too, because the first reaction I have when people say, oh, it's a place that you just can't access in the winter because there's no way in or out. And my first thought is, but could I go there like for a week during that?
Sure.
Like, couldn't we make that happen? Like, I just want to know.
I mean, probably. I'm sure there's a way. I don't think you should maybe talk about it on air, but yeah, I'm sure there's a way.
What I'm saying is, if there are any charter pilots of ill repute who would like to take me to Wendigo on Isle Royale, let's talk, homie. I can pay you in unimaginable horrors beyond all human comprehension.
I mean, it's about a 99% chance that this is only a one-way trip, so you only have to drop them off and then you can leave.
Yeah, that's true too. Just land, drop me off, and then take off, and then enjoy your cigarette as soon as you're out of the water and away from the land. So they're also across the country and in Canada, there are some Wendigo rivers and Wendigo lakes. There's a Wendigo lake in Wisconsin. And I find it fascinating. Yeah, I find it fascinating that, I mean, I get it. It's like a major part of their culture. And as far as I could tell from the research I did, and I am not an expert at researching this stuff like you, I couldn't find any evidence that it was like believed to be a Wendigo hotspot so much as it was just kind of a name given to it for reasons.
Sure.
So if you do find out why these places are called Wendigo and it's bizarre and scary, you hit me up and we'll do another episode.
Well, one thing that I can tell you, here's a little bit of knowledge that I can lay down. When people think of Native American, okay, they think of just like, oh, they're all the same. They're not all the same. Different tribes and areas have way different beliefs. Wendigo in the Pacific Northwest is Bigfoot. It is a Bigfoot. The name Wendigo is a type of Bigfoot, and it's also spelled W-I-N-D. Wendigo. And, it's a type of Bigfoot. One thing that is consistent across every single Native American tribe that we have is that water is a natural cleanser for negative energy and holds and carries bad energy. So when a lot of these tribes settled, they would settle not right on the water at all, because they thought that was a bad omen. Water's bad. Not that water's terrible, it can also be a life source, but because you take your things to cleanse your negative energy in the water, and then the water holds it, and it's kind of like a barrier. So I probably, yes, if there's a Wendigo River, it probably is named after that creature. I could very much believe that, because that's a belief across the board. They all believe it, which is endlessly interesting to me, especially when we have so many stories of high strangeness happening in and around bodies of water.
Yes, bodies of water are definitely a hotbed for strange happenings, which makes sense too, because bodies of water are a hotbed for life. Things need water to live. So one more for you before I let you go, before I free your spirit, so that you may not be spiritually in Upper Michigan with me as the dogmen are approaching. So I just want to bring up one of my favorite Native American folklore pieces. I have no idea if it has anything to do with Michigan necessarily, but I just wanted to throw it out there. I love the story of the Deer Woman very, very much. So I don't know if you knew much about the Deer Woman yourself.
A little bit, but it is interesting. I don't remember if she just is a deer, right? Like she just is like an anthropomorphic deer.
She's a beautiful woman with deer legs that the men never notice because they're too busy looking at how beautiful she is. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, totally. I 1,000% believe that story. That is a very that's a very good story. It is actually loosely tied to the dancing devil of, I think it's San Antonio in Texas.
Huh. Okay.
Kind of a similar concept, but more of an event that people are still swear to this day happened. A very handsome man showed up at a dance party one night in San Antonio, and people were just so impressed by his dance moves. I mean, they had no idea who this handsome stranger was, and somebody at some point eventually happened to look down at his feet, and he had hooves instead of feet.
Oh.
Sometimes he doesn't have hooves. Sometimes he has chicken feet, which I think is hilarious. Because I love to imagine a big man on little chicken feet.
Of course.
Hooves is like more the number one, and people swear by it. And then, of course, as soon as they noticed, everybody freaked out and he left, and he was never seen from again. So there are stories, and that's a modern day. I think that happened in like the 70s. I mean, that's a modern day story. There are accounts of these things using some type of distraction but still having a piece of themselves, and they know that you as a human, you're too dumb to just look down.
Yeah.
But that is a good one. That's a really good one.
Well, I thank you so very much, Ashley, for being on the show today. I think it was incredibly informative, and also I'm creeped the hell out now. So that's what the goal was all along. So
good.
Would you please tell my listeners where they can find out more about your work and listen to your shows?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on social media if you'd like. I have a Facebook page. It's under Ashley Hilt. I'm the one with the red hair. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at It's Ashers with a Z. And you can listen to on Wednesdays We Talk Weird. Anywhere you listen to podcasts is a new episode bright and early every Wednesday.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And please don't smoke in the woods.